All right, what's going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. It is time. It is that time of the week. We are here to discuss True Detective, episode 3, part 3, and a lot of good stuff in tonight's episode, yeah, that we're gonna break down. This is full spoilers. We're talking beginning, middle, end. We're gonna have some fun tonight. I have a little game I want to play with y'all in regards to kind of like a suspect list, an updated suspect list. Who do we think are some of our number one, number two, top five contenders in regards to not only who killed the scientist, but also Annie K. So we're gonna have a fun time tonight. Very excited to be here. You know, we did it last week. We're here again. If you guys are just tuning in or coming in from my breakdown video that I put out, I appreciate you all watching this. And again, it's going to be an extension of that, as well as taking your live questions and reading off your theories and predictions and just having a good time, man. Because this, look, man, I did a little tweet about it earlier before we went live on. I shared a post on Instagram and X, just talking about how, for me, my perception of these first three episodes, Issa López has just been knocking it out of the park, man. I've really enjoyed her direction. She is just so perfect when it comes to like building tension, but I also love like the humanity in tonight's episode, exploring indigenous people and the indigenous people in tonight's episode, which is really handled well as Issa doesn't drop the ball when it comes to creeping me out. Last week with the Lunds waking up in the corpsicle, and then tonight him waking up yet again, and it was freaking fantastic. And we'll get into all of that in tonight's live after show of True Detective episode 3, part 3. So before we get into it, man, let me see who we got in the chat. Who we got? We got D in the chat saying he can't wait. What's going on, D? Appreciate you being here tonight. Hope your weekend was good. Glad you're doing a recap and review. Well, thank you. Glad you're enjoying the recaps and reviews, and appreciate you being here. And I hope you have a good weekend. Watch LB, what is going on? How are you doing? L, hope you have seen the episode. I hope you're still in chat. I would love to get your thoughts on it. I know you're doing breakdowns on your wonderful channel as well, but glad to see you. My man Justin in the building. What Justin saying? HBO is really smart to air this during the winter because of the cold. Yeah, and for sure. It's perfect timing. Perfect timing for sure. ZM clears to know how it's in the wrap with 3. Yeah, man, Z, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? There's a lot of stuff that we have to obviously resolve with obviously dating back to Annie K, everything going on with her, but also too obviously the scientists. But we're also getting, and we'll obviously talk about it tonight, the continuation of the backstory of all these characters, right? Whether it be what we got with Liz, continue to see her kind of inner scars and things that she's dealing with, and also showing a little bit of her vulnerable, more lightheartedness in tonight's episode, a little bit of levity in tonight's episode. But also Navarro, man, she's really such an intriguing character and such a interesting backstory, right? That we get tonight with her and her mom and everything that went on with her mom. She died mysteriously and no one found her killer. Very interested to get you guys' thoughts on that. We'll talk about that tonight. And again, Leah and everything we're getting with Peter and his dad. So there's a lot of great dynamics that I really enjoyed in tonight's episode. But going back to Zia's point, it's a lot of loose threads that we can hopefully pull together before it's all said and done with only 3 episodes left, which I'm very curious. I don't know if it's been stated or not by the creators behind the show. All the previous, episode or seasons, I should say, have been what, 8 to 9 and 10 episodes. So I am very curious on why this particular season is a little bit shorter than the previous ones, but neither here nor there, man. We got a lot to discuss. And again, I appreciate y'all joining me tonight talking about this episode. Just since the supernatural element really has me hooked. Yeah, same here, Justin. As you know, because you've been a part of the channel for a while, your boy is a horror fan. So I love when we dive into the supernatural, creepy, what goes bumping in the night type of aspects. And this show does a really good job of handling that, in my opinion. Karen, what's going on? How we doing? Nisi, how we doing, Nisi? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you being here tonight. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Share your thoughts in the comments if you did. All right, let's see. You were right. I was bugging saying the season 1 I'm glad you went back and checked it out. It's one of the best season 1s that I've ever seen. So I'm glad you went back and checked it out. It's a slow burn, right? That's the beauty of Detective thrilling crime, suspenseful type of shows or movies, it's a slow build, right? So I'm glad you stuck with it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope you're enjoying this season as well. Let's see. They give so much backstory, but not enough. They give so much backstory, but not enough, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think there's, obviously there's that whole idea of like just giving the audience just enough to kind of keep them intrigued and question certain things. But I think there's, obviously still things to learn about, especially with Navarro. Again, her mom dying, murdered, who killed her? Is she still, is that at all connected to what's going on with Annie Kay and the scientists? Obviously, we don't know what happened to Liz's husband and Leah's dad. What happened to Holden? So yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions pertaining to the backstory of some of these characters, but I'm confident that it's all going to come together. At least I hope so. And especially, speaking of tonight's episode too, we got the I mentioned it last week that they talked about Wheeler. It was briefly mentioned between the conversation with Navarro and Liz and in the kitchen scene towards the end of episode 2, when they said, what we did with Wheeler, we had to do it. And I speculated in my breakdown, like, if you saw that video, I said, I feel like Wheeler is someone that, as we saw in the episode, and it came to be the truth, but not all the truth, that we'll get into in tonight's breakdown. Because Liz told Peter that, we'll get into it. But neither here nor there. Let's just break it all down. First off, with all 30, 40 you all watching live, appreciate you. You could be anywhere in the world. Shout out to the, I'm in Missouri, but not too far from Kansas. So shout out to any Kansas City Chiefs out there. My thoughts and condolences to the Baltimore fans out there. It was a really great year for Lamar, MVP type of year, but they came up short. So shout out to the Chiefs. And it's always next year for the Ravens fans. And then also, who else won today? The 49ers. So shout out to the Bay Area, and, I'm sad for the Detroit Lions fans, but shout out to Detroit, man. If you guys follow football, they don't have a lot of good seasons. So this is hopefully a building block for a brighter future for them. But any 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs fans, shout out to y'all, man. Super Bowl, here we come. But putting that aside, for all 41 of you all watching now, hit the thumbs up, share your thoughts, your theories, your predictions, your Easter eggs, questions obviously that you might have for me, questions that you all might have for people in the chat as well. Definitely drop it in the comment section. And if you just happen to be coming across this video because the algorithm, threw it your way because you like talking about this show, definitely consider subscribing to the channel and checking out all my True Detective content. Again, I dropped my full review earlier, like 30 minutes ago. So you guys can, watch that after tonight's live stream, or watch the video and then come back. However you want to do it, it's cool with me. But definitely consider subscribing to the channel. But let me know, before we get into it, letter grades. Drop some letter grades for me in the chat, guys. For all those watching live, what grade would you give tonight's episode, or scale of 1 to 10? But if we're doing the letter grade, A obviously being the top, B, C, all the way to D to F. Let me know what you guys would give this episode on a scale of, again, 1 to 10 or A to F. Let me know in the comments while I get things loaded up here with our first scene here, which let's talk about it. Let's just get right into it. Let's talk about this opening sequence here, which was a flashback, taking us back to, what was it, 7 years? So what, 2018 that we see here, that we have Navarro, young Navarro, and when she was working for the police department before she got transferred to be a trooper. She is here to look for Annie Kay. Annie Kay is someone that obviously we've heard her. Obviously, we know what happened to her, the tragedy that happened to her with her being murdered in such a brutal way, tongue being cut out, beaten up, stabbed, with these starlight shapes, and just a very brutal murder that was unsolved. But we have yet to actually meet Annie Kay. But that all changes in tonight's episode, as we see in this first scene here that Navarro is looking for, because she has, she's a protester, as we know. So she was under arrest for, destruction of property, private property, trespassing. And Annie Kay's like, listen, you can arrest me later, but I got some business to take care of. As she's the, she's running the last, I think it was the last, birthing center in this area. So she's like, look, we can handle this later, but I got some business to do. So I love just that presence from Annie from when we first meet her. And again, I want to point out, and I mentioned this in my video, that I was under the assumption that Annie K and Navarro were like homegirls, really close because yes, Navarro is a police officer. She feels bad. Obviously she wants to solve this horrendous, essentially hate crime that was done on Annie K. So I understood that perspective, but also thought that she was just like maybe friends. They were really close to each other. But no, as we see in the scene, this was their first time meeting each other. And I'm very curious if there were other interactions prior to this or after this between these two characters. But Annie K is giving birth to the one lady. I think her name was Grace or Maggie, one or the other. The baby is maybe having some complications. They end up performing CPR on the baby, and everything's okay. But just to kind of put that in the back burner, the whole baby situation, because one of the things that I love that was kind of in the forefront, but also just kind of echoed throughout this episode was just like the terrible conditions that this community and in particularly the natives to this community, what they go through with stillborns, and the water is bad, the air is bad, so it's so much going on here that it just puts everything in perspective. So I really kind of love that we, number one, get to see Annie, but also get to see her in action, to see how integral she was to the community, being a midwife and everything that she brought to the community. So I just love that we get that backstory. And again, I am very curious if Annie K and Navarro had other interactions after this, because one of the things I definitely noticed in this scene is, when Navarro's there, obviously he's a police officer, but there was some tension in the room. Like, what I think the woman that was pregnant says, what is this? What is this woman? What is she doing here? Almost like there's this type of stigma towards Navarro. Like, I don't know, is it, as we'll talk about later, with Oliver saying what's her name, and not Navarro or Evangeline, but like what's her native name, and she doesn't have it because her mom didn't give it to her. But I wonder if there is just some type of I don't know, like I said, tension or a level of disrespect because she doesn't really connect to her roots like that. So I'm very curious on the interaction between these two characters, or not between these two characters, but Navarro and the indigenous community, and why there's like, again, what is this bitch doing here? And then, like I said, later on in the episode, Oliver's like, what is you must have forgotten your name. So it's like, there's something going on there that I'm very intrigued to get a little bit more backstory on. But again, tying that to Annie K, I wonder if Annie K like kind of allowed Navarro to see the other side of, the indigenous community and tying to her roots or whatnot. But after she died, she kind of abandoned it. So again, I'm very curious if there are more scenes with Annie K, Navarro, if there's just more scenes with Annie K in general, because as we find out from Susan in tonight's episode, Annie K had some, the situation with the tattoo, obviously with Clark. They had their, they kind of was on this path of meeting each other, and we'll get into that scene there. But there's still a lot of questions pertaining to Annie K, and especially that Blair Witch Project ending that we have here with her on the cell phone being attacked. Who attacked her? What was that attacked her? A lot of question marks revolving around Annie K. But let me know what you all thought about that opening, and any questions, theories, or anything you guys had about that opening sequence here. What is this? I love Peter not getting the yeah, we'll talk about that later, which yes, we will definitely talk about that, because I never looked at Peter and Liz in a romantic light, but that was brought up quite a few times tonight. So we'll definitely get into that. But we got some scores here. We got a 9 out of 10. We got a B, 8 out of 10. We got an A. We got a 4 out of 5. We got a B. We got an A. So a lot of y'all were digging tonight's episode. I'm glad y'all are, because I was definitely digging it. B plus. What LB talking about? B minus only because Lund skid. Yeah, like that. That's what's up. B plus, we got A minus. Yeah, we will definitely get into that scene a little bit later, because that was definitely got me excited being a horror fan. Brandon from Just My Opinion Review, shout out to B. He had his movie and TV roundup, entertainment roundup for movies and shows tonight with, I believe Tyra was a special guest tonight. So I got to watch that replay, but shout out to B. I know this ain't your cup of tea, because there's a little bit of horror mixed into the mix here, but it is not, what, B, I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead. I think you can handle this, B. It's not a straight up horror. It does have some some not necessarily jump scares, but some things that might, stick on you in the middle of the night. But I think let me know if you're still here, Brandon, if you are a fan of this series and if you've seen any of the episodes yet. But shout out to my man Brandon stopping through, showing some love. But again, we talked about this opening scene with Annie K, and again, just getting a little bit of a backstory of her, how and Navarro and her, how they first met, and kind of that wanted to arrest her, but by the end of that pregnancy, there was some sense of like Navarro changed her perspective in a sense, like, I'm not going to arrest you. You're doing good things. You're looking out for people and whatnot. So very curious to see if there are more scenes between those two. But speaking of individuals that, come off very suspect and someone that I'm very curious of what you guys think about. Hanky, man. Henry, as Kate called him last week. Hank is on one, man. So we see he's gathering up all the police officers on top of gathering up just like regular civilians with their guns looking for Clark. And I'm going to ask the same question I posed in my breakdown. Do we think this, kill on sight, shoot on sight, kill Clark, because Navarro's like, listen, remember we want him alive. And Hank says to Navarro, do we? Yeah, you do. You want to get answers for the scientist, but also potentially Annie K and his relationship with her. So him saying to Navarro, do we want to keep him alive or question if he should be brought in alive is very interesting to me, because I think I mentioned him last week that he is in the pockets of Kate. I think Kate is paying off other police officers in the Department of Ennis. So that's one thing that I'm thinking. And also too, I forgot to mention in the breakdown, but this is why we have these live streams, because it's on top of the mind now. I was watching episode 2 again recently before watching episode 3. And, we talked about it, the relationship between Hank and his mail order bride from Russia, who by the end of this episode, I think she's 2 days away. And I think the way it's lining up will be at, December 25th, Christmas on the timeline should be episode 5, if not the finale. But that whole relationship, I question if there is something more to look into it. But in that conversation that Hank was having with his, fiance, soon to be wife, which I don't think that will happen, but he says to her, I still got some money left, because she texted him that her mom was sick or whatever. He's sending her money, which again, I think it's like a 90-day fiance scam situation. But he says that I still got some money left over. Obviously, we can take that as face value. Obviously, he's a police officer, probably has a retirement fund, probably has, an extra bonus check coming on the way. Or he still has money left over for what happened to Annie K 6 years ago. Again, a la Kate paying them off, or a la the people above Kate, as we, talked about the connections of the Tuttle family with connections to season 1 and season 3, and that whole chain of, the cult that they follow. So Hank, y'all, let me know where are you all at as far as Hank being involved, whether this is the Annie K case, which I'm like 95% of confirmed that he is somehow involved with Annie K. I'm not saying he was the one that killed her and brutally murdered her, but I think he knows a little bit more of who did it, and obviously playing into the cover up of it all. He had Annie's case files in his home for many years. We'll talk about it tonight. He didn't reveal the call that Susan had to the police station. So I'm, like I said, 95% sure that he has some involvement with Annie K's murder, but I'm not sure if that ties into what happened to the scientist. So Hank, I'm going to have a game for y'all a little bit later. We're going to play like a kind of a, who do we think is our number one suspect a little bit later, but Hank's definitely top of mind for me. But I'm very curious of where you all are with Mr. Hanky. Stress fee, if Annie K was still maybe the baby would born this episode would have survived, and Navarro knows that. If Annie K was still, maybe the baby would born. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Correct me, help me out on that one. Stress on I don't know what baby you're referring to. And the baby surviving. Let me know if you're still here. Stress. What you remember that? Just saying, I really enjoyed how the mind really is affecting the community and how the workers refuse to accept that when the mind closes, the Native community still is there. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. And I mentioned in my breakdown that was something I really enjoyed about tonight's episode, showing that perspective, because in some shows, when something's going on with the town, you don't really hear from the town. You only hear from the main characters and supporting characters, but you don't really feel the sense of like there's a town, there's a heart, a beating heartbeat. There's actually people that are affected by what's going on besides the main, A plot and B plot. So I love that we got to see the community tonight in tonight's episode from so many different perspectives. Again, from the opening scene, that resilience, that sense of community of helping. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. I love that aspect. As we'll talk about later, with Leah going to the protesting meeting and just seeing them, mourning the loss of the baby, the stillborn baby, and just seeing them gather together, and then the prayer session at the end. So I love all the stuff that we got from the community aspect of tonight's episode. That was a really good through line for me tonight. Tim saying, I think Navarro was at the protest when the protests became violent. Yeah, potentially. For sure, I can see that happening. If we do get like a flashback of like an actual like big protesting scene, and maybe that could be another flashback involving Annie K. Got an A- being a horror fanatic. I felt very served this episode. The practical effects of the frostbite was so fantastic, and the character development is top notch. Couldn't have said it better myself. Definitely agree with you there. Enjoyed this episode to the end. Not sure about the final scene. We'll get into that, and definitely elaborate on what didn't work for you in that final scene. The doctor was kind of have to warn us that Ed is hard to. Oh yeah. It was rough to look at for sure. Hank got a small top on his wrist, shaking my head. To me, Hank's a red herring. Could be. I mean, a lot of breadcrumbs alluding to him being involved. He just has that type of look. That I can't think of the actor's name, but he's always in like those type of can't trust them type of characters. It should be the Hank. Well, Hank was the chief of the department. I don't know, maybe because of Conley, his baby, his girl, his little booty call. He wanted to hook her up, but yeah, he was at one point running the department. So yeah, I'm very curious if he still wants that position or if he's just like. I mean, I think secretly he still has his like pockets of people that probably look up to him and respect him more than Danvers. But yeah. He doesn't want him alive because Hank doesn't want stuff answered. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I don't know if that's just his own motivations, or if it's like an order that was given down from someone else. It's real. I think he's gonna see it. Yeah, I think so too. But I hope it's more to that than just like a scamming situation. I hope there's like an actual reveal to that. I wonder if the arrival of the bride is the trope. A few days until retirement cops say before they die. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely red flag. I think Hank is is a useful idiot for sure. He was in Deadwood. Okay, I've only seen a handful of episodes of Deadwood. Was that Ian McShane's show? And who else was in that? From what I saw, it was really good. But I just westerns are like hit or miss for me. I'm not always the biggest fans of them, but it was good. And I know they made a movie and all that stuff. But yeah, Westworld was a solid show. I got to go back and catch up with it. But as we get back to the police station, we got a couple big moments here. Well, one in particular. Two things I want to mention. But we have the forensics technician is not gonna be in tonight's. He or she's not in the episode, but I saw some people in the comments of last week's video mention that they think that the forensics cop or the forensics technician might be Russ Cole, aka Matthew McConaughey. I don't see that character Russ, going from a police detective to forensics technician career path for him, but we'll see who that technician is, because they're building that up, right? They build it up for 2 weeks in a row, and we still haven't got the technician or who the technician is. So interesting nonetheless, but they're running behind because of the weather. Or saving them for the finale or the penultimate episode. But as they're setting that up, we Peter has the duties of unlocking Annie's phone. As Liz says it, you're under 30, so you can figure it out. But Peter asks the big question, which is, what's the beef between you and Navarro? What happened on you guys' last case? And she breaks it down like a fraction. Like I said, I mentioned it last week that I felt like, I had only seen the trailer once, because I don't really like watching trailers. Like if I'm sold on a movie or show, I don't need to see a lot of promotion. But I had seen the main trailer for the show, and as I talked about in last week's video, there was a shot of a guy in a chair, and you could see off in the distance it was a girl that was dead. And as I said in my video last week, that I think that that's the Wheeler situation, and I'll pat myself on the back on that one. That was the case. That was William Wheeler, as we found out in this episode, was a very terrible human being. In and out of jail, different, track record as long as just so many different things that he's did. And, he got out of jail this one time. He came across his 18-year-old girl, and everyone in town, as we know, this is a very small town and everyone talks to each other. Everyone, including the police, as Liz said, everyone knew that it was just a matter of time before something bad happened to this young lady, who I don't know if they said her name or not. But again, yet another example of an indigenous woman in particular in this community being, murdered and killed. But, he killed her. They got the call. Navarro and Liz come to the scene, and unfortunately this young lady's dead, and he seems to care less. Right, he's sitting there whistling, which I'm very curious if that whistle has any significance to anything coming back later on in this season. But he's sitting there whistling, don't care what just happened. But the thing that's interesting is that Liz tells Peter that it was a murder-suicide, meaning that, someone was murdered and someone took their own life. In this case, the young lady was murdered. And as Liz alluded to, that it was William Wheeler who took his own life after murdering that young lady. But we know that is not the case, or at least so far. Who's to say he didn't, we didn't see the whole scene. Maybe he had a gun and he, took his own life moments later. But I don't think that happened. I believe either Liz or Navarro took matters in their own hand. And obviously, a lot of us would probably assume it's probably Navarro, just because she seems a little bit more, what's the word, like reactionary, like, and not in a bad way, but like the emotions, like, you see this young lady dead and there's so much going on in this town and whatnot. And she just probably was fed up and knew that this guy, William, just continuously gets in and out of jail and there's no consequences. So one would think that Navarro was the one that pulled the trigger. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was Liz, to be honest with you all. She has her own little, personality traits where you can see her kind of reacting in a matter that's kind of reactionary as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Liz was the one. Again, just following my theory, if they killed him and he didn't take his own life, I think Liz pulled the trigger. And I think Navarro went along with it, like, damn right, justice served in a sense, right? And they came up with the plan that, we're going to say that it was a murder-suicide, and, we're going to go stick with that story. And if that is the case, and if it is Liz, then Navarro, was holding a secret for Liz, which, I guess I'm kind of backtracking, because the way Liz treats Navarro, the shortness of conversations in the first episode, and her, shooting her off the scene, and, obviously sending her to be a trooper. You would think for someone to know that big of a secret would probably not be as rude to an individual. So I might backtrack on that a little bit. It might have been the other way around. Navarro shot and then Liz kept it a secret, because they seem to have had a good relationship prior to this incident. So, and again, I could be all wrong. It could, the dude could have took his own life moments after that. I think there's more to the scene. But let me know where you all are at with William Wheeler, and if you all think that A, he took his own life, as Liz said, B, Navarro popped him in the head and they came up with the plan that, he took his own life, or Liz did it, or something else entirely. Maybe he's, I don't know, still out. I don't know. Let me know in the chat, guys, what you all think about it. But I don't think this is the last time we will see him, not necessarily, live in the flesh, but as we know, there's a lot of supernatural elements in the show. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Jules or Navarro herself has like a dream or a vision of him. I think that whistle is going to come back. I really do have a feeling that was a very, and for my true deep cut True Detective fans, I don't think that whistle has been, that tune has been brought up in previous seasons, but I don't think it's not a coincidence that he whistled in that scene. I think that's going to play back at some point in these next 3 episodes. But let me know what y'all thought about that scene with Wheeler. Let me pop into the comments here and see what you guys are thinking about. Let's see. Peter knew. You think he knew, Lisa? He did have a face on, like he was just like, okay, we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, he might. I don't know if Peter's that intuitive. I don't think he's as as good as his job as like a Liz or Navarro is. But you could be right. Could be right. Let's see. My money is on Navarro shooting him. Yeah, like I said, I can see that being the case. And Liz covering up for, and like I said, my whole idea of like Liz, it wouldn't make sense that Liz would do it and then not cover it. Be so rude to Navarro. So yeah, I'm backtracking. I can see it being Navarro for sure. Or like Lola said, could have been Liz. Yeah, you think Liz shot him? Like I said, the only thing that's keeping me thinking of Liz is the way she treats Navarro. If you're gonna keep a secret like that, you wouldn't treat Navarro like that, as far as just, demoting her and, making fun of her beliefs and, all that stuff that she does from the first two episodes. And then tonight's episode 2 with her, her prayers and whatnot. But a lot of you all think it's Liz. Okay. I feel like it's likely more Liz, probably one of the events in the town that had contributed to her faded or jaded behavior. Possibly. Okay, it's a lot of y'all are with me with the Liz pulling the trigger. I feel Liz is still upset. She has to cover up for Navarro. And I guess what would be because again, we don't know their relationship prior to obviously the situation at hand, but I guess what would be the motivation for Liz to cover up for Navarro, besides obviously just want to looking out for her. But based on everything we've seen so far, it looks like they would have that type of relationship. So yeah, just very curious. I really hope that we do get more of that that scene between those two and what actually happened between them. I think the issues between Danvers and Navarro are from the relationship they had each other that soured. Yeah, for sure. The song was Twist and Shout. What are you talking about? That he was whistling. It's okay. Was that? I have to go back and listen to it. Unfortunately, when I watched episode 3, I didn't watch it tonight live. I'm fortunate enough to had an early screener of it, but unfortunately the screeners don't have subtitles, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch the HBO version of it. Because if that Tim, if that's the case, and everyone, and I'm not saying I don't believe you, Tim, but if everyone else watched it tonight with subtitles on, was it Twist and Shout that he was whistling? Because then that even goes further into Liz being the one that shot him, because we obviously know from episode 1, she turned the TV off with Ferris Bueller playing on, and obviously in episode 2 it was revealed that song was playing in the background with her and Holden. So like I had mentioned in one of my breakdowns, that I feel like that song, I think it was episode 1 that I talked about, that song probably has a deeper meaning to her. So yeah, if he was whistling, how would he know that? I mean, obviously that's a popular song, but that's trippy. That is trippy. I'm gonna have to go back now and check that out, because again, I didn't have subtitles. And how do you even whistle Twist and Shout? I don't even know how you whistle that. I'm gonna have to go back. Thank you, Tim, for bringing that up, and everyone else in the chat. Lola's saying that it was. So yeah, that's very, very interesting, because again, it makes me. I'm talking about. Let me go back and watch it. Let me just go to the scene right now and turn the subtitles. I'm not going to play it for obvious reasons, because it's copyrighted. But let me just. You guys are gonna get my live reaction. Let me see. I'm gonna play the scene. Let me see. Subtitles on. Are they on? Here we go. All right, y'all. All right. So subtitles on. Music fades. He's turning around. He's looking at him. And oh wow. See, this is why we're doing this, y'all. This is why. So shout out to Tim and Lola and everyone else that confirmed this. But yeah, that is very interesting. So let me not play that for HBO. Snatch the stream off. As you all can see, as Tim and everyone else brought up, that he was whistling Twist and Shout. That is so weird, because why would he be whistling that? Unless obviously this is Liz telling the story, and if we're thinking that she obviously is covering up and lying, that there's probably it's one of those can't trust a narrator type of situations. Maybe her recollection of that scene, he was whistling that, because obviously we know that song means something to her. or if he really did whistle that in that real moment. That is an odd situation, because why in the hell would he be whistling that, knowing, obviously we know as an audience that the song means something to her. Man, that's interesting. That is really, really interesting. Now we're going to have a 30-minute conversation about that. That is really interesting, Tim, and Lola and everyone else that caught that. That is, my mind is blown. Very, very intriguing. So now again goes back to, I think Liz was the one that pulled the trigger, because we know that's a triggering song for her. So very interesting stuff. I really do hope that we get more of that scene of what actually happened, and showing Liz doing that. As we all can maybe assume, that Liz was the one that pulled the trigger. I like it. I love it, man. This is why we're here, y'all, to uncover the mystery of True Detective. So I like that. I like that a lot. Very, very interesting. But nonetheless, within that scene, she tells the half truth, a little bit of lie in there. But one of the things I do want to talk about is, first off, let me go to the screen shot here. I'm very curious, and let me know if you guys feel the same way. I'm referring to the relationship between Liz and Mr. Peter here. And let me go to the actual scene here when she notices the scar or the bruise on his face. We obviously know he got that from his father last week when he slapped him. But it was brought up in tonight's episode, and it was brought up even last week. And even Navarro kind of jokes around in this episode talking about, Peter better watch out or whatever, because obviously we know Liz is very, she's very sexually active, and shout out to Liz. There's, you got to get yours, you know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with that. But, in tonight's episode and previous episodes, it's been kind of hinted at that people joke around that Liz might have had something with the kid, with Peter, obviously. But tonight really kind of opened my eyes to that idea that Liz and Peter may have had a romantic relationship at some point. She's, gently touching his face. And again, I still feel like this is the case, but I'm open to the idea that it could be a possibility that they might have been romantic. And obviously, him now with his girl, Kayla, and his child, and that's no longer a relationship. But the gentle touch on the cheek, Hank mentioned earlier, the Mrs. Robertson reference. And even, like I said, Navarro joking around about, you better watch out, Peter. Is I don't know. I don't think there's a relationship, but it could be. It could be. I looked at it more as like a mother-son relationship. We obviously know Peter's mom left when he was a kid. And obviously we know that Liz lost a son. At least, that's the assumption so far. It hasn't been confirmed, but we feel like he lost a son. So it's kind of like, I don't have a mom. So I kind of look at her as a mom, even though she's my boss. I respect her. She's great at her job. And then from the Peter perspective, he's a young kid. His dad seems to be a POS. He's very interested in his job. He's getting good at his job. So I want to help him out. But is there something romantic there? I don't know. I hope it's not, because I don't know what that would do. What would that add to the show of a romantic relationship? But let me know if you guys are open to the idea of a relationship, and if there is a relationship, like, I don't know, what would it serve the purpose of the show besides just a complex relationship? Anyway, speaking of complexity, this orange, back to back weeks, Navarro has this connection very similar to her sister Jules, and as well as we heard her mom had these mental breakdowns, but also her mom apparently was able to speak to the dead. And we obviously, hold on one second, guys. Sorry, my dog was doing some stuff he shouldn't have been doing. Anyway, Navarro, tonight's episode yet again showed us her having a supernatural situation with this orange. She gets the orange, she throws it out in the middle of nowhere, it rolls back to her. And by the way, in my breakdown, I brought the orange is actually in the opening credits of the episode. So I don't know if the orange is going to make a comeback to the show. But nonetheless, man, I'm very curious on if we're going to continue to see Navarro continue to neglect that side of her abilities, if she's scared to touch and tap into that spiritual, supernatural sense of it all. But there's so many times where we see her coming across these supernatural situations, and we'll talk about the big one in tonight's episode with her talking to Lunds. But The orange rolling back. We'll talk about the scene with the kid later, which I think was Holden, but a lot of moments with Navarro being in contact with the dead. So very, very interesting stuff. But let me talk about one of my favorite scenes here, and let me know if you all felt the same way. I mentioned it last week when we saw Peter and Liz at the gym, at the rink, coming up with the whys, what's, whens, and hows. I just love, especially with detective shows, when we see the people at work and doing their job and trying to figure things out, and things are not just skipped over. I love the little details. I love them working together. Number one, I love their chemistry between Liz and Navarro, but I love this scene here because this shows them again putting the pieces to the puzzle together. And also too, I mentioned in my video, let me see if you guys could zoom in here. You guys noticed a little detail there, the spirals there. And what makes it even cool to me is like they're sitting in the middle of a circle. So it's just like a, super meta little detail there. But I love that how they're working together and how damn good Liz is at her job. She's so attention to detail is so great for her. She's like a Sherlock Holmes or Enola Holmes. But she is able to put together that the t-shirt that Annie was wearing was dated 2016. She was able to see that one of the photos was taken by someone else. It wasn't a selfie like the other photos. And then obviously Navarro's good at her job as well. She's, puts the pieces and remembers that she had a conversation with Susan, who we'll talk about here in a second. And I just love these moments. Again, I love a crime noir story, but I love when we see, people at their jobs doing their job. and they're pretty damn good at it, putting the pieces to the puzzle. So that was obvious. That was one of my favorite scenes of tonight's episode. Let me know if you guys appreciated that scene, or if there was any other little details or Easter eggs you all picked out. If there was some subtitles that I might have missed out in this scene, let me know in the comments. But that was one of my favorite scenes tonight's episode for sure, was them putting everything together. But going through the rest of this and just picking out some other big moments I want to talk about with you all before we get to the ending, obviously. Let's talk about Susan, man. Let's talk about her. A couple things that I want to bring up with Susan. She was someone that Navarro interviewed quite a few times. That was, friends and knew Annie. And unfortunately, Susan lied to Navarro when she was brought up about Annie. And, I don't want to say rightfully so, but she had her reasons why she lied, right? She says that, after Annie was stabbed 32 times, that's, for someone we obviously know, I assume that was her daughter, could have been a granddaughter or whatnot. But, she has a little girl that she's taking care of, and she has things to live for, essentially. So she said, I'm going to keep my mouth shut, regardless if it's a good thing or bad thing, I'm just going to be quiet to an extent, because we find out that she did try to call in and try to help things out. But this is an interesting scene, man. We find out so many things here. Number one, she mentions that Annie K was obsessive about coming to the research center. And that's okay. Why was Annie K so like, let me go, Susan, let me go with you, because we find out Susan was, she cut the hair, she's a hairstylist, she cut the hair of the scientist. And we find out from Bryce last week that they don't leave the facility besides Clark, because obviously he left to hang out with Annie. But she says they cut their hair, and Annie was like persistent about going. So she went with her one day, and she hit it off with Clark. And she mentions that Clark really took an interest in her, especially once she showed him her tattoo. Obviously, we know that he has a tattoo a couple days after she died, and they hit it off, y'all. So again, the questions that I want to know, or I'm going to pose to you all, and I'm going to try to answer myself while I ask you all, is why was Annie so persistent about going to the research center? And she also mentions in the scene that Annie would dream of the tattoo. She had dreams of the tattoo, right? What's the deal with the dream? Obviously, we know dreams are very important to a lot of these characters. We saw Liz have her little dream with Holden touching her shoulder. Was that a dream? Was that in real time? We have a dream in this episode with Navarro. So dreams are very important to the show, but she, shows her the picture of the spiral, brings up the dream. So I'm very curious on what exactly are the details of this dream, besides the getting the tattoo. And I'm in the mindset, again, for those that have seen season 1, knowing what the spiral meant to those characters and the cult and the Tuttle and all that different stuff. I think that this spiral is originated from Ennis, and I think it has a different potentially it can be perceived differently in different parts of the world. In this case, Alaska with indigenous people. I think that it has a different meaning to what it was associated with in season one. I think it can mean, many things. One of them being, you know, everlasting life or resurrection. I think there's a little bit more of a spiritual connection to what the spiral could mean in the context of this show and how they're presenting it compared to, season one and also in season three of True Detective. But she mentions that she had the dream and that's why she got the tattoo. And then the dream stops after she got the tattoo. And we know that Clark took a lot of interest in his tattoo. So I'm under the mindset that Annie knew what they were doing at the research center. And I feel like it could be one or two ways. I feel like maybe I do think that Annie and Clark might have had a genuine relationship, but I also think that there was give or take that I think that they were both kind of using each other in that relationship. There was something that Annie had that Clark wanted. There was some information that Clark had that Annie wanted, and it kind of benefited them that they were, interested in each other at the same time. So this is a lot of good stuff here in this scene, a lot of good information that I think will be some big reveals later down the road in regards to the dream, as well as the Clark Annie. Were they destined to meet to each other? Was it in her dream to meet this guy? Was she aware of what they were researching, which in episode one was the origins of life. Episode two was trying to find a cure for, diseases ending such as cancer. And again, going back to what we got from Annie in this episode, she was a caretaker. She was a midwife. She was someone that really, seemed to be integral to her community and helping people out. What if she knew what they were researching could help people out and can save lives and can obviously shut down the mines, but also maybe help, people out with the effects of the mine, right? The stillborn babies and so on and so forth. So my head's going a million miles a minute, man, with this information that we get in this scene. But I really thought it was very pivotal. On top of, Susan was just dropping bombs after bombs. It's like, Susan, where were you 6 years ago when the case broke down? But better late than never, I guess, right? But Susan also drops another bomb, which is Annie wasn't the only one that was involved with one of the scientists. Well, he wasn't a scientist, but he worked there, and that is Oliver, a character that we'll talk about later. But she was in I don't know if she didn't get to details. Like she said she was seeing someone who was Oliver. He was a engineer, equipment engineer, and she mentioned that he quit before Annie died. So I'm thinking that Oliver might have known or might have learned that the research facility was in cahoots with the mines. Obviously, we know from when we see Oliver later in this episode that he is very much, very attached to his community, to his roots, to his heritage. So once he found out what they were doing, he probably quit because obviously we know that the mines are polluting the air, polluting the water, and causing stillborn babies. So he probably found out and said, I'm out of here. But he didn't tell the police for whatever reason, because probably, he didn't want to die. But yeah, man, a lot of good nuggets here in this scene. And let me take a sip of water because there's a lot of good stuff that we're talking about. But let me see what you guys are thinking about with Susan, Annie, dreams, meeting Clark. Let me see what y'all are talking about. All right, let's see. Liz misses her son. Definitely agree with that, especially in tonight's episode when she was helping that little girl. I think she definitely misses her son for sure. Wait, you still don't know? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know quite yet, my friend. That's the big question so far. I only went there to hook up with Clark or to find out what they're doing, right? And to get closer to it and to find what she found at the end of this episode. I'm going to say the spiral was kind of just meaning to drawn into something. Yeah, that could be the case. That could be the case. And he was on a mission to maybe second coming. Interesting. Annie had her youth. The symbol means a circle of life, birth through reincarnation. Interesting. Is I don't know, is that factual or you just like your theory? Made it to she being, yeah, I think so too, Karen, for sure. Um, let's see what Nisi. Could the symbol mean aliens? Aliens are coming, Nisi. They're already here, according to current news. But could be aliens. I mean, Liz jokingly said she mentioned what ET earlier or in this episode, so could be. I hope it's not aliens. I really do hope it's not aliens because that would burst my bubble with this show if it's revealed to be aliens. But no, potentially. Hey, everything's on the table right now. Everything's on the table with the mystery of the spiral, the interpretation of it, what it can do, what it means, so on and so forth. But speaking of meaning, and again, for those that are tuning in live, all 66 of y'all, appreciate you. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't already, if you're having a good time, because I certainly am. Continue to share your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments, and I'll try to get to them as often as I can. And of course, subscribe to the channel if this is your first time tuning in. But if you haven't already, like I said, after tonight's live stream, if you haven't seen my breakdown, definitely check it out. But something I mentioned in the breakdown, and someone actually talked about, Liz missing her son Holden, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. And I also feel like Liz, whether it was last week we saw her. It was a brief scene, but we saw her interacting with Holden and being nice and attentive to him when he was playing with his Legos, taking interest in him, and just being a nice person. We see that in tonight's episode, her looking after this little girl, making sure that she's not stressed out because her mom's being questioned by the police. So I definitely think there's something there where Liz kind of sees maybe Holden in these young kids that we've seen in episode 2 in tonight's episode. But I don't know if I'm when I'll be watching this show, man, I'll be like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Let me look up this. But I don't think things are just thrown out there. But it could be nothing. But we see Liz talks about this, this little girl talking about her the unicorn or her shirt, right? And she talks about, I don't know, Puddles, some unicorn. I don't know if that's an actual like fictional cartoon. I don't watch cartoons nowadays, but it's probably fictional to the show. But she talks about unicorns and all the different stuff, and I'm like, that's interesting. She, the show just throw in that scene with her talking to the little girl and making sure she's fed and not nervous. But I'm like, let me just Google, unicorns, the meaning of unicorns, and there's a lot of different things you can find on unicorns. But one in particular that I thought was interesting is that unicorns, can symbolize, purity, innocence, power, healing abilities, but also it's said, legend has it, that unicorns, their horns. And I thought this is very odd, but when you Google unicorns and look up what their horns can do, they have healing abilities, but their horns can also purify water, which we obviously know the show has a connection to water because the water is being polluted by the mines. So I'm saying to myself, are we going to see a unicorn in this show? And again, if you saw my video, I said maybe not the unicorn, but there's a big connection with animals, the caribou in episode 1, but also the bear, the polar bear that we've seen several times throughout this show. The bear, I don't think it made an appearance in tonight's episode. I'm just trying to think back. Yeah, I don't think there was like any Easter eggs or anything in the bear, but I said in my video, and I'll say it again here, maybe the bear, in kind of a different mythology type of thing, the bear is kind of a symbolizing of whatever the unicorn could be to this mythos and to this, the legends of this situation at hand. So, yeah, I don't think that was just a throwaway line. The unicorns, and what they symbolize and them purifying water. So, yeah, just things I think about when watching shows like this. And this show in particular, I think everything has a point, everything has a purpose. But let me know if you took anything away from that scene, and again, share your thoughts on Susan. And also, speaking of Susan, is there anything else she kept a secret? Was there more information that she didn't divulge to Navarro and Liz? Very curious. And why did her and Oliver break up? Why did Oliver leave the facility? So on and so forth. So very, very curious on what you guys think about that. Again, you can watch my full video. I'm going to skip over the scene between Liz and Navarro in the car. I kind of broke down my thoughts on that scene and a little bit of levity that we got there, but also the really interesting line of Navarro talking about it. She doesn't, when she talks to God, she doesn't, talk or ask for anything. She listens, which I thought is a very interesting, connection to her character, because she hasn't listened to her whatever shining abilities that her family seems to have with communicating with the dead. So I thought that was very, very interesting. But I'm curious, we talked about Hank earlier and his him being connected to this murder. And again, we're gonna play a fun game. I'm gonna get close to the end, but I want to play a game with you all as far as suspects go. But this scene really caught my eye because I didn't know what to think of it, as far as like, was it genuine? Was it a part of something that he's doing behind, with Kate? But there's a scene here where he goes to the rink. He gives his son his hockey skates, because we found out in this episode, because I don't know if they mentioned it previously, that Peter was a big hockey player back in his heyday. And for whatever reason, we don't know why he quit. Maybe he got injured and he became to be a policeman. I don't know if he wanted to be a policeman because of his dad, because of Liz, or because his mom was missing. Maybe he was like, or not missing, but she left. So I don't know. Maybe he has some type of intuition that he wants to be a cop and find his mom. I don't know. I don't know why he's a cop. I don't know why he stopped playing hockey. But either way, Hank goes to him and says, "Hey, son." And I think it was kind of like, I'm sorry for slapping you upside your head last week. Here's kind of a, an apology. But he gives him his skates and he says, "Hey, if you take my grandson out, I know you were into skating when you were at his age. So if you guys go skating one day, hit me up." And Peter's like, "Yeah, whatever. But I'm thinking back to last week. And as I said last week, Kate told Peter, it was a really quick scene, and I talked about it in a breakdown, but she says, "Hey, talk to your boy, Peter, about, dropping the police act and going back to being a skater. He can help my son skate or whatever." And I took that as like, get your boy out of the police department, because I don't want him digging around, figuring stuff out, keep everything on the hush or whatever. So I thought in this scene, I'm like, oh, is this him doing, what Kate said, like pushing the narrative to Peter, like, "Hey, get back to doing hockey, son. Get back on the ice, which you're, naturally gifted at, or whatever." He, was apparently a good hockey player. But then I'm like, maybe he's being genuine. Maybe he was actually genuine in this scene. Like, "Son, let's have a father, son, grandson day and have a good time." So I'm very confident that Hank has something to do with Annie's case, or at least covering up. But in this scene again, it's just something I was thinking about. Do you all think Hank was genuine to his son in this scene, or if he was doing what Kate told him last week, which is to put that bug in his ear to get him off the police force and to go back to skating? So I don't know. What did you all think about that scene? Good dad. Well, he's not a good dad, slapping his son around. And Peter, listen, bro, I don't condone violence, but dad, granddad or not, ain't no man slapping me across my face, and ain't no repercussions going on. But either way, Peter's a cool, calm, collective cat, so he didn't want to fight back. But anyway, in this scene, Navarro and Liz come in, they get into a fight because obviously they just found out that Susan said that she had called the police and told them everything about Oliver and what. I don't know if she specified. I think she said that she told the police about just Annie and Clark and all that, but she happened to talk to, it wasn't, she didn't say the name, but obviously the very next scene, it was Hank. So we all know it was Hank, and Navarro questions him about it. And of course, Hank keeping his cards close to his chest. He's like, "Oh, what am I supposed to, take every name of guy?" Because apparently Susan was very promiscuous and had relationships with different dudes in the town. He's like, "I'm not gonna, I dismissed her." Obviously, he didn't follow protocol. So Liz is like, "I'm going to write you up." And he says a very interesting line to her, like, "You're playing," again, going back to what I talked about earlier, if Liz and Peter had a relationship, he calls her Mrs. Robertson. And for those that aren't familiar with that reference, I only knew about it because I've seen The Graduate multiple times. But it's a reference, actually, it's an origin to a song, Mrs. Robertson, and it's in reference to an older woman taking interest in a younger guy. And again, if you've seen The Graduate, it's a lot of the plot revolves around that with the main characters there. But he called her that, and she throws the coffee or tea in his face and all that stuff there. So very, very interesting. Again, it dates back to the conversation we had about the relationship between Peter and Liz, if there was a sexual relationship between them at some point, or if it was just, rumors, or just someone, getting under her skin, or if there's a validity to it. Very interested to see what comes of all that, if there is a relationship there with Mrs. The Robertson comment there. But yeah. But let's see here. Let's see what y'all talking about before we move on to the fun stuff, which is a game I want to play with you all, but also talk about that creepy ending. Let me scroll up a little bit. And again, I appreciate y'all, man. I love obviously talking about this show, but it makes it even better when you have a community like this and awesome people like you all out there to talk about this show with. So I appreciate y'all, man. Let me go up to that. Oh, let's see. I got some comments about the unicorn situation. All right, let me go. Let me see. Where were we at? She said she was hooking up with. It's the do we know what happened to her son? Not quite yet, Michelle. I mentioned it that I think there was a car accident involved, which we'll talk about with Navarro's dream sequence here in a second. But I also thought that maybe a polar bear might have attacked, Holden, and hence the missing eye from polar bear. Someone was trying to save him and shot the polar bear, but it was too late. So we don't know quite yet. But I'm leaning towards the car accident, especially after tonight's episode. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a polar bear was in the middle of the road, someone swerved off the road in a car accident. So it could still tie into the polar bear and a car accident. But hopefully time will tell. Hopefully we'll find out. No, assumption is car accident with the dad, but not confirmed. Yep. That's I think we're all in the same boat there. Good call with the unicorn theory. Yeah, we'll see. It might not turn out to be anything. The bear was there. The Navarro spirit animals, the polar bear. Was it in the episode though, MJ? I don't remember seeing it like in the episode, unless I missed it. I'm gonna say this: the spiral in this is the opposite direction of season 1. Yeah, it's a good observation. You are 100% correct that it is the opposite way. Yep. Spiritual shape. Yep. Toy bear, the vision is holding. Yep. We'll talk about that here in a second. Great stuff. You guys are dropping some great stuff here. I'm going to. Oh yeah, no worries. You're just in time. You can always watch the jump right into conversation now, and of course watch the replay to catch the beginning, because we have some fun little conversations at the beginning as well. So, but I appreciate you being here. Ooh, I hope Peter isn't involved with. I don't think he is, but again, it was brought up a lot tonight to make me, obviously question if there is some type of relationship. Yeah, me too. Watch it be like I can't think of a character from like season 2, right? We were talking about the connection with season 1 and a little bit connection with season 3, but what if it was like a character from season 2? But I don't think there was any characters that would tie to the story at all. You think, yeah, this is way apologizing. Personally, I think Navarro killed her mother, but that's just me. Interesting. Why would she kill her mother? That's dark. Yeah, we'll talk about that, the given name, but I'm still tripping on the Navarro killing her mother. Where did you get that from? Good stuff. Where's the father of the dead son? One would assume that the Leah's dad, I think his name was Jake, if I'm not mistaken, because they mentioned him last week in the flashback sequence. I think his name was Jake or Jacob. I think whatever happened to Holden, I think the father was involved as well. But again, we don't know yet. But hopefully we will find out. But let's get back into, so we got the skating rink. Peter suggests that he gets his cousin Vince involved because he's a veterinarian, and can maybe help them out on figuring out the bodies, the scientists, and get a little bit of information, because since the forensics technician is running behind. Let's go to the Navarro and Kavik scene. But in particularly, again, I got a full breakdown talking about the scene. I like their relationship. I really hope, I can't remember if it was episode 1 or episode 2, but I try to read and respond to all the comments. But it was a couple comments that mentioned the possibilities of her romantically involved friend Kavik might be involved. I can't remember what the comment was, but it was in regards to her taking the toothbrush in episode 1, and obviously DNA and things like that. So I hope Kavik's not involved. I don't think he is involved. I think he's just one of those like characters that are just there to, be a supporting character and to have that kind of interesting relationship with Navarro. But also, what I loved about this scene, and I mentioned in my breakdown a little bit more in depth, one of the themes of this episode was pulling back the layers and getting information about these characters and their inner scars and kind of their inner demons and things that they go through. And what I compared it to was obviously, we go to this, which again in the breakdown I mentioned that this little hut, this fishing hut that they're in, was in the opening credits. At the end of each opening credit, there's like a little Easter egg alluding to a scene that we're going to see later in the episode. Episode 1, it was the little cafeteria area with the research center, which was where the tongue was found, and obviously, a main area of interest for the crime of them, dying. Episode 2 was what was episode 2? It was the trailer. The trailer was the last shot in the opening credits, and then tonight it was that little hut that we saw. And I could be wrong, but my interpretation of this scene and the importance of this hut was, it's an area to fish, right? And I compared that to what Navarro's doing. He's the audience. He's fishing for answers to learn more about Navarro. And that's exactly what happens in this scene, which we can just talk about now. We learn from Navarro that her mom was a native or a local to Ennis, but she worked for, which I thought was interesting, she worked for a gold mine that's no longer existing. I wonder if there's any connections there to the gold mines that shut down. And obviously, a big corporation comes in and expands on that mine and makes it into the mines that we know that supports the financial stability of this town. But her mom moved to Boston, met the dad. He was abusive to not only the mom, but also the kids. They moved back to Ennis. And for whatever reason, we don't know why. Hopefully we get more information about that. And I'll talk about my connections to the mom a little bit later. But she mentioned that her mom just like walked out and never came back. And lo and behold, I know someone mentioned that. Interesting theory, but someone said earlier that Navarro might have killed their own mother, which I hope that's not the case. But, we found out her mom was murdered, which to me opens up, and again, I'm going to tie this back to the ending, the message that Lunds has, that your mother says hello. She wants to talk to you, but I wonder who killed her mom. I wonder if the dad did it. I wonder if someone else in the town might have did it, but I think that that's something to keep in mind. And also she mentions that she was never given her, native name, which is a big theme throughout this episode. I mentioned there's like a level of like kind of some animosity, tension between Navarro and some of the other natives in the town, because she doesn't have her native name. And I don't know if she like necessarily, involves herself in the community as much. But, a lot of big things in this scene. But again, I took away the getting the backstory, hearing about her mom. And I wouldn't be surprised, because we heard in episode 1 that Navarro, like, obviously she wants to serve justice and make sure that crimes are solved. People are, families are getting the answers of loved ones being murdered or dying and whatnot. So it's obviously a motivational factor why she became a police officer. But I wouldn't be surprised if she, because also they mentioned episode 1 that she like takes a very big interest on when women are murdered and killed and missing. And also, obviously in real life, a lot of indigenous women that go missing and people don't do the proper investigations and do enough searching to figuring out answers. But I wouldn't be surprised if her motivational factor to become a police officer was because her mom died without unanswered, it was unanswered. She said that it was never figured out. So I wouldn't be surprised if the death of her mom was why she became a police officer. But very, very curious on what happened to her mom. And if it has any connections to when she worked at the mines or the current mines, or something else entirely. Who's to say going back to who shot William Willer, we know that William Willer obviously murdered that girl. I don't know if there's any, if we end up getting a flashback to that scene, if Navarro finds out that, I don't know if William murdered his mom, murdered her mom. That's too much. That would probably be too many bags to unpack there. But very curious if we find out what happened to her mom at a later point in time. And I wouldn't be surprised if she has a scene with her mom and gets her name by the end of the show, her native name. So a lot of good stuff in this little fishing hut. Really interesting scene. So let's get to the juicy stuff. Again, if I'm skipping over some stuff, I broke it. I have a 30+ minute breakdown of this episode that's on the channel now, which you guys can check out if you haven't already. I talk about the Leah scene, how I feel like, and let me know if you guys feel the same way. The Leah, I like the acting. I think all the acting is pretty solid in the show. Pretty great, if I'm being honest. But the Leah subplot involving her being more involved in the community, I feel like we're missing a scene or two. Like, it just feels like, okay, we met her in episode 1, did the little sex tape with her girlfriend. We see her in episode 2. Not a lot of pushback in that episode, but then all of a sudden, like she's like, and nothing's wrong with it, but like she's now like she's involved with the community now. She wants to protest now. It's like I don't know if there's like another scene or two that I think that we haven't, that was maybe on the cutting room floor, or they might have said it, but I wish they would have shown it. But again, there's nothing wrong with it. I just wish it was a little bit more fleshed out, to explaining how she went from this step to that step and how she's, where she is now, with wanting to be more involved. But we get that. And again, I love the stuff with the community in this episode and them talking about the effects of the mines and how it's affecting the community. And we see that. And that's the thing about, I think that's where we're getting at with the Liz stuff again, or Leah stuff. I just wish we would have had like that actual motivational scene of why she's wants to get involved. But we have all that stuff there. And this, I kind of feel the same way a little bit about Peter and his subplot involving Kayla, and how like it feels forced that she's kind of pressing him about, again, we talked about the romantic angle potentially between Liz and Peter, and there's that side of it. But then it's like, even if it's not romantically, like, he is a police officer, and I'm sure that people don't just go mysteriously missing in the middle of the night, and 8 scientists are end up disappearing and then figuring, finding out what happened to them, or we haven't figured out what happened to them yet. But I don't think that this happens every day, right? It's a small town. It's a really big case. So I don't know if I fully feel like it's been earned that Kayla's been kind of pressing Peter so much about this case that is very big in this small town. So I feel like that's been a little bit forced. But outside of that, those are like the 2 like little subplots, and I don't know if it's really working for me quite yet. Let me know if you guys are feeling the same way with the Peter, Kayla, in the stuff with Leah, getting more involved in the community. But neither here nor there. As we move past that stuff, again, Liz is very, very aggressive with Leah, and I mentioned it last week when she had yelled at her with the markings on her face, and she does the same thing here in tonight's episode. She's like, "Get that shit off your face." The way I'm interpreting it right now is one of 2 things. Number one, she says to her in the scene, "Do you know what they do to those people? We know that they are protesters. We know at the beginning of this episode, Annie was about to get arrested for destruction of property. So do you know what they do to those people? They lock them up when they break the law. Or do you know what they do with those people? When you push hard enough, they push back, a la what happened to Annie, right? She doesn't want Leah to end up like Annie." But then the other side of my brain was thinking, again, we don't know too much about Leah's father and her relationship with her father, but also we don't know the relationship between Liz and her father. One would assume, based on Leah being native to the land. I think when we saw Jake, he kind of looked like he was native as well. But one, who's to say that maybe he wasn't involved more in the community and, the protesting? Maybe he was part of the protesting, and maybe that caused a rift and some arguments between Liz and her husband. So maybe Liz wants to protect her and doesn't want her to get involved and cause tension like it did with her husband. So there's, and honestly, I think Liz is doing it out of in a loving state of mind, like she's trying to protect her daughter. But let me know what you guys think of it. But also, too, I mentioned in my breakdown that I think, and another reason why I think Liz has been a little bit more not proactive, but a little bit more aggressive with Liz not being as involved in the protesting is, again, going back to Annie. She doesn't want her to end up like Annie. Like, I think when she sees Leah, she can see Annie, right? She has the markings. She's, involved in the protesting. So I think, and this speaks also to Liz, I think Liz is caring more about what happened to Annie because she sees a little bit of her Annie and in Leah. So a lot of inner workings, a lot of character stuff that I'm really was enjoying that we got in tonight's episode, especially from Liz, someone that's a little hardened, in the first two episodes, but we definitely got to see more of her, like I say, inner scars. But speaking of, inner scars and inner thoughts and all that stuff, we get this scene here. And again, if you guys, we got 73 of y'all watching. We're an hour and 20 minutes into this conversation. I've been babbling this whole time, but I hope you all are having a good time. I certainly am. I love that we get to chat and talk about this show that I'm really enjoying. But if you haven't already, thumbs up, share your thoughts, comments, predictions, theories. I'll read them off here in a second, checking in with you all. But definitely hit the thumbs up, and I would appreciate it. But we get this scene here, and before we get to this scene, let me catch up to the chat. Let me see what you all are talking about before we get into this dream sequence here. Let's see. What's up, Travis? Nah, man, you're good, bro. You came right in time and says, hey, just live, caught the show. I'm all caught up. I have mad questions for instance, Navarro and Dammers. I don't believe the backstory. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Travis, in regards to if you're referring to William Willer. Yeah, we definitely know that there's a lie going on, but definitely, yeah, we talked about that earlier, Travis. So definitely check out the replay, my friend, on that conversational piece. Well, not the to each your own. If you feel like the backstory of them hasn't worked for, I was the story that hasn't worked is the motives for Leah to me, and also the Peter and his girlfriend or wife Kayla. That stuff hasn't entirely been fleshed out to me yet, or hasn't been as intriguing. To me, it's obvious that the spirit of Liz's son is trying to contact Navarro with the polar bear. The vision of the bear is missing an eye, just like I told you. Yeah, definitely. That definitely seems to be the case, right? Which brings me to this scene here. She goes to, when she leaves Kavik's little hut, she sees a little boy on the ice. She chases after it, falls, hits her head. She wakes up. She's in this dreamlike sequence. And again, we talked about it earlier. We were under the assumption. Let me go here and find the screenshot. We're under the assumption that Liz's son Holden may have been involved in a car accident, and this scene might definitely allude to that being the reason that he passed away, because that looks to me like a car accident is what took place in this scene. But then there's a little boy, right, touches her shoulder, and let me, because again, I didn't have my subtitles weren't available from when I saw the episode. So let me see what the little boy, I played it in the audio on my video, but let me see what the little boy said. I thought it said like, I want my mommy, or get my mommy. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm not sharing. Okay, let me just see. It says whispers, and it says, which this was such a creepy scene, by the way. Yeah, so that's what I thought here, I'll pull it up on the screen for you all at home. But yeah, one would assume that this was Holden, that she was having the dream about, or not even really a dream, but a vision. And it says, oops, let me scroll it up here. Tell my mommy, right? And it cuts. She wakes up from the dream or the vision. Yeah, I think we're all. Who said it earlier? I just had the comment up, but someone has said literally. not too long ago that the little boy, yeah, I definitely think that we're on the same boat here. But what's the message that Holden has, right? Does it have anything to do with the case? Is it a matter of closure? Like, does Liz feel responsible for the death of her son, whatever the situation was? Car accident, got into a fight with the husband. Husband leaves out, angry, kids in the car. We don't know. Whatever it is, we're assuming it's tragic. And we don't know. I don't know if it happened before she was a policewoman, after, was it in Ennis? Was it wherever she lived? Because we know she's not local to Ennis. So yeah, very, very curious. But what's the message, right? What is Holden trying to tell his mom? Because if we go back to episode 2, Rose, I love when we have a show that establishes the rules of the particular world, or the mythos that we're establishing here. She says that the dead normally contacts you to, and this isn't just, Bible to the show. A lot of people that spiritually believe in, communicating with the dead, they say this as well, at least from what I've heard. The dead normally communicates to you because they miss you, right? They want to send you a little sign, whether that's you see something that reminds you of them, or you look at the clock and it's a certain time, it's their favorite, different things associated with people that passed that you loved. They're trying to, just say that they miss you. She also said that they can try to warn you, try to tell you something, or they want to take you with them, right? So what is Holden trying to tell his mom? That's the big thing. Again, is it closure? Mom, you can let it go. It wasn't your fault. Mom, this, that, the third. This is what happened with Annie. This is what happened to the scientist. So very curious on the connections to the dead that Liz has with Holden, or Holden's trying to tell Liz, because there has been numerous times. Episode 1, the hand on the shoulder, the bear on the floor. Tonight's episode, there was a really, and I talked about it in our breakdown, it was a really, not a weird scene, but it happened. It was just like, like, what did that mean? She went to the refrigerator, and like there was something like whispering. It was like a humming noise coming out of the refrigerator. So like, again, Holden, what is he trying to tell her, right? Which, speaking of, communicating with the dead, we got the scene with Liz and her sister, Jules, not Liz, Jules and Navarro. She talks about there's a bad man coming, the sea, the water. We need to keep an eye on Jules. There's definitely something going on with her, and I think she's having communications with the spiritual realm, with the dead. And I think we need to listen to her, Navarro, and not just blame it on the her past mental situation going on. But let's get to the nitty gritty, and then we're gonna play a fun game once we wrap up the show here. Let's talk about this ending. Let me fast forward. Let me go through the stuff again. My full thoughts on the scene with Liz going to the spirit, or to the prayer session, and how she saw the water coming down on her hands, like literally seeing the condition that these people are living in. I talk about that. I talk about Vince saying that, the scientists literally were scared to death. They didn't freeze to death. They were dead before they froze. They were literally scared to death, as he said. So all that stuff I talk about in the video. Oliver talked about that scene a little bit earlier, but I talk about it in the video as well. But I just want to go. Oh, by the way, and I said this in the video. Let me see if I can find. Was this? I didn't go back to see if it was him or not, but was this guy here who remains nameless? Is this the same dude from episode 1? I'm referring to I don't know how you're watching it, the guy in the tan outfit, not the guy with the bandana and the glasses. This guy here. Is that the same guy from episode 1, the very first scene of this show, with the caribou, who was hunting the caribou? Is that him, or am I tripping? Because if it is him, obviously it goes back to tying to episode 1, and obviously that's a big question, why the caribou jump off the cliff and take their own lives. But is that the same character? I couldn't tell or not. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the IMDb and actors and line it up and see if that's him or not. Because obviously that's still a big question mark. Why did those caribou do that? But speaking of the dead, shout out to my Evil Dead fans out there. This was reminding me of Evil Dead. Not just from a prosthetic standpoint, but from just like the the speaking through a human, like a vessel. I'm referring to the last second to last scene. Liz gets the call that Lunds is awake, lost his vision, both legs amputated. Obviously, fingers are burnt, frostbitten. He's kind of out of his mind. And she, jumps right to the questions like, what happened? Tell me what happened. And he looks at her as let me see if I got some screen grabs here. He says that we woke something up. We woke something up. She's alive. She came at us in the dark, and that's it. That's all. Right? What is the decipher? What does that mean? Who is she? What did they wake up? They obviously found what they've been looking for this whole time, and it literally scared them to death. Obviously, I love that the show has the audience, us watching this, saying that, yeah, it's supernatural, spiritual. I think that the show is leaning towards that a lot more than previous seasons. But then there's other people that's like, everything can be explained. Everything is grounded in reality. But how the hell do you explain this? So at this point, Liz gets as much information out of him as they can, but there's some commotion going on in the hallway. The hillbillies are fighting with the cops or whatnot. So she's doing that, leaving Navarro, with Lunds. And first off, I love the voice modulation, change of the voice. I love how creepy it is. And in movies and shows like this, like it's always like, why could no one else see this? Where's the cameras at? He says to her, he calls her Evangeline, right? Which there's not a lot of characters that call her by her first name. I think the only one that calls her that is Kavik, because Jules calls her Angie or Ange or something, like a little nickname. And then everyone else calls her Navarro. So to call her Evangeline, it's very personal. He tells her that your mother is waiting. And then he points, right? Let me bring that up again because it's just creepy and I love it. I love the prosthetics. I love the voice changes. I'm here for it. But let's talk about this. That wasn't his voice, right? That was like, shout out to A24's Talk to Me. That was another spirit, using him as a vessel, as a puppet to send this message. But who was that is the question I have. What spirit was that was interacting with Navarro? In my video, and I'll bring it up here, and definitely share your thoughts on this in the comments for those watching live in the replay. I think, going back to the scene with Kavik, about, her mom, dad, abusive. I think the dad ended up finding them, killed the mom. And I think the dad, that was when they were kids, or, 10, 15, 20 years. I think the dad died for whatever, old age or whatever. Took his own life. Who knows? I think the dad's dead. And I think that was the dad communicating through Lunds that your mother's looking for you and she wants to tell you something. So, and again, going back to the spirit or whatever it was, Evangeline, right? That seems, again, it's very personal. That's, your mom, dad came up with the name to give you, Evangeline. Again, I could be wrong, but that's where my head's at. That I think that was her dad communicating through Lunds to talk to your mom, that she's trying to reach out to you, to give you a message, to warn you, tell you she misses you, or to tell you something important. What y'all think about that? What y'all think? What y'all think about the scene, prosthetics, the creepiness? Let me know. And I'm going to read the comments here, but I want to get to this last scene and then play a little game, and then we'll wrap up with the comments. Great scene. But then we follow that up with, earlier in the episode, Liz tells Peter to hack, to crack the phone or whatever, Andy's case or phone that we got from Clark's trailer last week. And, he eventually does. And they open it, and there's a video on the phone. And the video is of, and also too, before I forget, and I mentioned this in my breakdown. Again, just keep plugging that video. Check it out if you haven't already. But Lunds dies. He's dead now. And I think that spiral being gone from his head might have played to his death, because I feel like the spiral is like a form of protection. If it's on you, it's, a lot of stuff with the spiral. But he's dead now, right? Their witness is no longer with us. But Peter cracks the phone, and there's a video of Annie. And she says, I found it. I found it. And then, she's looking around very, Blair Witch Project moment. She wasn't crying and the snot wasn't coming down, but very much scared for her life wherever she is. Look, she was in some underground, icy area from what we can gather from the background. But whatever she found grabbed her, and we end the episode with her just screaming, screaming to her death, as we would assume, screaming to her death. So, and also too, I couldn't tell. Is that? It looks circular. Is that the spiral? I don't know if that's a spiral now, but it seems wherever she is, she's under ice. That seems to be an icy tunnel, icy underground secret something, that she found. So, thoughts, theories, predictions. Let's hear it. Let's see where y'all at about that ending there, which was, again, I love it. So good. Let's see. Oh, what's the Easter egg? Interesting. I didn't catch that. Very cool. Very cool. Unsolved mystery? Possibly. Let's see. Yeah, again, I talked about it earlier. I don't know what was the idea of the 6 episodes. I don't know why this chair isn't working, but I know I've seen some interviews with the creator, Issa López. Shout out to her. She's a genius storyteller, genius filmmaker. Big fan of hers. But I know in one of the interviews, she said that initially she made Night Country. Night Country was not True Detective. It was its own separate story, own separate narrative. It wasn't attached to the True Detective narrative. But when she was selling her script and trying to get it picked up, HBO was like, this is True Detective. You need to add, this is what we love about True Detective. So they, incorporated all this stuff to fit into the world, right? To the True Detective world, as we got the hints with Rust and the Spiral and all that stuff. But again, Night Country was his own thing. So I wonder if she initially pitched it as like a 6-episode miniseries, limited series. And then once it got, integrated with the True Detective story and all that stuff, they still stuck with the 6-episode count. But yeah, like 2 more. I mean, obviously we don't know how it ends. It could all wrap up like a perfect bow, so we don't know how it's going to wrap up 6 episodes, but normally 6 episodes with murder mysteries, you need more. But again, I'm going to hold my judgment on that. I'm hoping that the story is complete by episode 6. I mean, of course, look, I'm going to prepare myself, because it's more times than not, shows purpose, on purpose, they don't tell you everything, right? There's still like a nature of like, let the audience kind of make up their own theories and make up their own predictions on what they thought could have happened. But I hope it's not a lot of that by episode 6. I hope we get, obviously, scientists, Annie, and then like Navarro's mom. How did she die? Who killed her? William Willer, little stuff like that is okay. I don't want to say okay, but it's like, I would be okay if we got all the major answers, and if they left some things unanswered, then I'm okay. But it's like, it all just depends. So either way, I'm hopeful. Yeah, that's a good call. We talked about it earlier. And really, we, again, check out the replay on this video. But we were, my initial thought was Liz shot the guy. But I'm like, well, if she shot the guy, and then her and Navarro was like, let's keep this a secret between me and you, then why would Liz treat her so badly? Well, I don't say badly, but she's, she's not nice to Navarro, right? There's obviously tension between the two, and she makes her jokes at Navarro. But I'm like, if she's someone that's holding this secret, why would you need to be like, every time you see Navarro, kissing her feet, because she's keeping it secret. But then we talked about earlier, I didn't have the subtitles on when I watched this episode because of the screener, but the guy was whistling Twist and Shout, and we know that song has a connection to Liz. So it's like, oh, he was whistling that. She thinks of her son. Boom, just kind of reacted. But then Navarro of it all goes to what, kind of what you're saying. We know Navarro has a soft spot for women getting abused because, obviously her mom, she saw it at a young age. And again, if we're thinking, or if I'm thinking her dad might have killed her mom, she might think that. That's why she became a police officer, and takes on these cases. And while the Annie case is just so like it's unsolved, my mom's case was unsolved. I need to give justice to these women. So yeah. A lot of connections, a lot of thoughts to think about there. Yeah, that's still in the question. Nisi brings up, I wonder what happened to the injured soldier. What they whisper, perhaps her name. I like that, Nisi. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's something that was introduced in episode 1 that hopefully gets answered. But if she got her name, she doesn't know her name yet. So if her name was whispered, maybe she kept it a secret because she didn't think it was real. But it was her mom channeling through. Yeah, I think yeah. That, you know what, Nisi, I like where your head's at, because again, going back to when she was in that scene with Kavik, she was gonna say something. She was like, "I just wish," and she stopped herself from saying it. And then obviously Oliver asked her name earlier in this episode, her native name, and she didn't say it because she said to Kavik she was never given that name. But you might be onto something, Nisi. Her mom is trying to channel. I mentioned they either miss you, warn you, want to tell you something, take you with you. What if her mom's trying to give her the name, right? Because she never gave her name. Nisi, I like where your head's at. I like it. And maybe the soldier said that, but she just was like so shocked by it that she'd never, thought much of it because it's just like a phenomenon. Or maybe she just blanked it out. I love it. I love it, man. You guys are awesome. I love this. Let's see. And if you guys are having a good time, like I said, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. I would appreciate it. The killer is going to be someone everyone knows, most likely cool with. The whole series so far has been about people close to everyone. It's kind of significant loss. Yeah. And that's and stay tuned. We're going to play a little suspect game here in a second to hear all of our suspects. Good call. Let's see. We got some red herrings. Big red herring. I think the woman who hit the guy over the head with the bucket, and then asked the symbol because she knows which. Yeah, put a pin in that because we're going to talk about not her, but we're going to talk about her, the woman she was defending, Blair, I think is her name. What about the orange? Yeah, I talked about the orange earlier. The orange is in the opening credits. Twice in the opening credits, we see the orange rolling on the ground, which we saw in this episode, and we see the peel of the orange. So I think the significance of the orange is just another physical manifestation of like her communicating with the dead when she threw it out and it came back to her. But there might actually be something more, like the significance of the orange might be more to it, something, a backstory or something that's connected to Navarro. Because when you go back to that scene, the guy drops the oranges. He picks up all the oranges. So it's like, where does she get that orange from? Because from what I saw, he picked them all up and he dropped them by the truck. So yeah, I think there's something with the oranges. Again, we only got 3 episodes. Hopefully all this stuff we get answered because it's very, very intriguing so far. Let's see here. Ooh, this sounds dark. If they were in a car crash, couldn't get out, the boy could have been dragged out by a polar bear. Yeah, and like I said, that was the whole polar bear of it all. I think the polar bear definitely has some significance. It's almost meant to Afghanistan. The whispers of the fridge are also twist and shout. Oh, were they? I didn't see the I went to that scene. I didn't see any subtitles, but interesting. Okay, so you got okay. Maybe I was tripping on that guy. You don't think it was him? Okay. They look similar. Again, the guy also too, I saw the guy, it was like almost like CGI for some reason. I don't know if it was just like a bad green screen or what. Yeah, the ending was very, horror vibes for sure. This series needs cliff notes. That's funny. Travis Yeah, I don't know if we'll get any more information about Travis. Or you're saying Travis was the one communicating through Lunds? That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, he was possessed for sure. Um, for sure. Because going back to episode 1 when we met Clark for the first time, he was under some type of possession, right? When he was she's here or she's awake, whatever he says. So yeah, definitely some possession stuff going on. Also, that voice Navarro heard was probably that's what I'm saying. My this stuff is not supernatural. It's logical. It's explain. I mean, listen, could have been a hallucination. You know, we got to remember these people are sleep deprived, right? It's nighttime all the time there. Well, today we got a little bit of light. You know, there's very small moments of light when they have that 60-day window of darkness. But yeah, these characters are sleep deprived, man. It's hard to sleep when you're trying to figure out a crime and you're having dreams and visions. So she could be very, very tired, and she could have made it all up in her head, or she didn't. But no, that's interesting. Think there's some type of virus or contagion going on with the minds, possibly. Evangeline is in the Bible, where the evangelist comes from. Yeah, yeah. Some biblical, spiritual stuff, connections for sure. Hearing Annie screaming that was Lewis. That was very chilling. Assuming that was the moment that she was brutally killed and murdered, with the tongue being cut out, stabbed 32 times. Which, you know what, by the way, I'm gonna read all you guys' comments before we wrap this up. But let's play a little game here. Live or die. Shout out to Jigsaw, my Saw fans out there. Let's play a game. Do you want to play a game? And that game is, who are our main suspects right now? Who, put them in a chat. I'm gonna bring up some contestants, and I might do a poll if I'm tech savvy enough to pull it up on YouTube. But let's play a game. Who done it? Who are our main suspects so far? Contestant number 1. Let's bring him up here. Clark, Raymond Clark, guys. And what I mean by main suspects is obviously the scientists, but also Annie K. And if there's, obviously connections, which I think we're all assuming that it's connected. Clark being number 1. So if we're saying Clark, number 1 suspect right now, potentially, why would he kill Annie K? He seemed to be in love with her. He seemed to be very happy from the photos, from what we're hearing. But when he found that tattoo, maybe that was something he was looking for his whole life. Found someone that knows about it, found someone that's connected to it, that knows a little information about it, and in a way, maybe used Annie K, right? Romantically involved, spiritual sacrifice, stabbed her 32 times. Who's to say that he wasn't the one that was with Annie K in those assuming it's a cave or ice? Who's to say that he wasn't the one that grabbed her? Because he believes in whatever this circular spiral symbol means or what it can bring to you. Because again, if we're connecting this to season 1, the people, the cult, believe that the sacrifices made brought them closer to their the Yellow King, and the sacrifices brought them spiritual enlightenment and closer to their God, essentially. So that Clark, was he doing the same thing and sacrificing Annie? Win her over, build her, gain her trust. But then again, Annie said, I found it. So she was on her own search too. The dreams and all the stuff that we talked about earlier in this episode. So there's that element, the Clark suspect, reasons, motives, things of that nature. The spiritual belief. Everyone says he's weird. He's a weird dude. He keeps to himself. And in episode 2, I think they said they contacted his mom, and he hasn't spoken to his mom in years. I think they said it was 10 years. So not a lot of personal outside connections with Mr. Clark there. So, but why would Clark, how was he able to do what he did with the scientists? Obviously, We're under the assumption, Clark says, she's alive. Whether that's Annie, resurrection from the dead. Again, the symbol might have some connection to reincarnation. She's alive. Can speak to. We still haven't addressed episode 1 with the drawing from Holden, or not Holden, but Darwin. He draws the local legend that his grandmother told him about, which was missing eyes, missing fingers, star-shaped eyes, and whatnot. Very similar to what happened to Annie. What is this local legend, right? Is she alive? Is she the one that scared them half to death, the scientists, and made them run out there on the ice and all that? So right now, like I said, he's one of our main suspects, not the main, but one of them. I think all this stuff with Clark might have an explanation. I don't know if he's the guy that we should be looking for, but let me know the percentage where you guys are at with Mr. Clark, Raymond Clark, being one of our main suspects. Suspect number 2, let's combine the two here. I'm referring to Kate and Hank. I mentioned it, we talked about it last week. She comes from money. She runs the rink. Or at least her family runs the rink, runs the mines. We talked about the subtle connection, it's ran by them. Is she married into the family? She changed her name because she was, she doesn't have the subtle last name, or is it a cover up? So, Kate having connections to belief in what they believed in season 1. And again, if we're taking what we learned in episode 2, Rose believes that, and I believe that there's a lot of validity to this, that Ennis is like this, the world's old, the world's getting tired, and Ennis is holding the fabric of reality, the edge of the earth. And the Tuttle family's looking for these special ancient places, and it seems to be a place where the dead and the living can coexist. So, sacrifices, and particularly, for mixing the reality of, in real world situations, Indigenous women go missing all the time, and there's unsolved mysteries, unsolved deaths, murders, that people just turn a blind eye. Very much like the show's kind of alluded to with Annie. They just kind of like, unsolved case. Same with Navarro's mom. So they experimenting, sacrificing the Indigenous people in this town, and Kate is a part of that. And Hank, I mentioned it earlier, him talking to his soon-to-be wife. I still got money left over. Is that money from, Kate and the Tuttle family to keep things under the hush? So those are some suspects that I think are definitely people that we should keep in mind. Let's talk about the scientists, y'all. We're obviously they're victims of being murdered, but who's to say they didn't murder Annie K, right? The sacrifice. I mentioned in my episode 1 how I was getting Wind River vibes. If you guys haven't seen that amazing film, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a particular story involving very similar story actually in some ways, but there was a character played by John Berthal that was in a romantic relationship with a particular character, and let's just say something happened to that character and something happened to him. And yeah, so again, if you've seen Wind River, you know what I'm referring to. If you haven't, check it out. Fantastic movie. But what if, again, Tuttle family, Mines, Research Center, working together, sacrifice, Annie K, Clark, keep your mouth shut. In these last 6 years, he's been using the other side of the spiral and trying to resurrect his fallen Annie. And he figured out a way to do that. And she got a revenge, right? So obviously the scientists are still on the chopping block for being responsible for the death of Annie K. Who else is a suspect? Something's going on with Blair. Because when we first meet her, she has her domestic situation with her boyfriend, who we haven't seen since episode 1. And in episode 2, we see Blair again. The young lady, the older woman brings up the photo and she, says, "This looks like witchcraft." And she's like, "Oh, I don't." The way she said that was like very, very like suspicious. Look at her. That's a suspicious face. That's a suspicious individual. What do we think about Blair? Like, again, the witchcraft of this story, going back to episode 2, the dolls, the writings on the wall, very much so can be looked at as like a form of witchcraft. But I'm still trying to put, okay, how do we go from Blair, witchcraft, scientist? Is it justice for what they've done to the people of Ennis? Is it justice for what they did to Annie? Does she have a tattoo that we're not aware of? But there's something about Blair. I don't know, man. Like I said, that suspicious face and her look right there. Something that we should keep an eye out for. And I mean, now, is it too on the nose? Blair Witch Project. I don't know. Is it too on the nose, guys? Maybe so. But I've talked enough of our main suspects. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Let's see. Let me scroll on up. She. This is interesting. Experiment in DNA, reincarnation, Annie found where they kept the experiments, some type of, again, we got to remember Annie. I think that the opening sequence of tonight's episode was very, very telling about her as a character. How, obviously she's a midwife, and we found out in this episode one of the newborn children was a stillborn. She was tired of it, man. She's been trying to shut down this mine. She knows what they're up to. It's affecting the people of the town, and she did enough research and digging, and she found the source of the pollution and all that. And it's a little bit more, like I said, bigger than what you can ever imagine, a little bit more cynical, or not cynical, but supernatural than what you could imagine. And DNA and reincarnation, very, very interesting. And like a bunch of bodies, and it's crazy, man. It's a very interesting theory there. I like it. Maybe the last episode will be longer. I can confirm here on this live, little scoop for you guys. Because if you guys don't know, I have the full season. I haven't watched the full season because I obviously want to do my breakdown, and it just makes it more intriguing when I can watch it with you all week to week. And obviously I have all my crazy theories. So I have all 6 episodes, but I watch it every Thursday or Friday, and I do my review and have it ready for Sunday. I can confirm, I won't say how long, but I can confirm that the final episode is the longest of the show. So that's something to look forward to. And I'm excited to check it out once we get to that week. So a little inside knowledge for you guys. Episode 6 will be the longest of the season. Again, I haven't seen it. I just know because when you see the screener, it shows you the runtime. And I'm like, oh, that's a little surprise, little extra large, little sauce on the side. So yes, expect the last episode to be longer, purely based on the runtime that I saw on the little screeners that they gave us. Let's see. A lot of great stuff. I'm just reading through you guys' comments, see if there's any. Yeah, it looked like she was underground in the video, like a mine. 100% agree with that. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Again, that is a narcissistic thing to do. Like, you know, what's the saying? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and you keep your enemies close. But she's like, nah, you know too much. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm just very intrigued to see if we get more of what happened. With the William Wheeler situation. Yeah, I mean, I wish they subtitles were in these screeners. This I gotta listen to it again. It was a distorted version of the in the fridge. Very interesting. Well, she's busy, so she, I think we're gonna see her again, but she's obviously not the star of the show. But yeah, she's great. I love her. I know what you mean. Like you want more of her because she's fantastic and everything she's in. She's been great in the show so far as well. Going back to the hallucination. Nobody else heard or saw the stuff with Navarro besides Navarro is definitely a red herring. Also gives the reason why she killed her. I love it. I love it. Um, let's see. What if Annie wasn't stabbed 32 times? What if those are teeth marks? If they don't know the difference between teeth marks and a stab wound, then that's a problem, right? I think that's a big problem. But I mean, you might be onto something. We know the polar bear is pretty big, but I mean, but again, they said that the stabbing, the marks were star-like shape. But no, I mean, hey, could be. I would just hope that people would know in that work in the police force, and even though we know some of the policemen in Ennis are buffoons taking selfies with the deceased and ripping people's arms off. So they're not the smartest besides Liz and Navarro in the department. But no, yeah, that's interesting perspective. Interesting, very interesting. What's Tim saying? I'm thinking Rose Cole is not physically there. Navarro only sees her and comes in and out the scenes without interacting with anyone else. Oh, I mean, you do have a point. We haven't seen anyone interact with her. It's a really good point, Sam, because I remember saying in my episode 1 breakdown that Navarro was the only one that addressed her, and Liz like walked right by her without addressing her. Huh. I like that. Because we haven't seen anyone interact with her. I'm just thinking when they called in the bodies Mia found, they said, they mentioned Rose found her. But again, it could have been like, Rose found her. Rose is dead. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I love it. Good stuff, Tim. I like that. Because, I mean, you're 100% right, man. I'm just, no one's spoken to her besides Navarro. Very, very interesting. Peter's dad, Hank, suspect number 1. Hank number 1. Hank, but kind of obvious. So I don't know. Mine owner is number 2. Kate. You just throwing out. You say Pete might be involved. Darwin, is he a suspect on your list too? I love it. Reanimated Annie K killed the scientist. Yeah, that could be something crazy to see. So far, the show is definitely pointing towards supernatural involvement, and that would be really wild if we get to see that. Pete, I don't know, guys. Are you guys saying Pete is responsible for killing? I mean, this was 6 years ago. I mean, Pete looks to be like 23, 24 years old. So he would have killed her when he was a teenager. I don't know. Why? What's the reasons? Why? What would Pete's reasons be? He's married to a native woman. His son's. I mean, I don't think there's any. I don't know. I mean, you guys could be wrong. I mean, could be wrong. Could be right. It's always the least. The last person you suspect. I don't know. I think Peter's too. Could be all a ploy. I don't know. I don't think Peter. You guys got me thinking Peter's. No, I don't think Peter's involved. But that's a good theory though. Hank is definitely. Yeah. I think it's almost too obvious because he's playing up to like the douchebag character. Again, I don't think it's going to be to the extent that he's involved in all of it, but I definitely think he's covering up what happened to Annie K. But I don't know if he has anything to do with the scientist. He seems just to like again this whole online, like he seems to be kind of an idiot. Someone mentioned it earlier, like he's a useful idiot. So yeah, I don't think he's involved entirely in everything. I think he's he's only certain pay grade that he's on, and that's the Annie K covering it all up. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Vic. The Cavic of it all. Someone had mentioned the toothbrush thing, but I think he's just I think he's gonna be a good guy, hopefully, but we'll see. Um, a lot of good stuff, guys. A lot of good stuff. I didn't even know we were on for 2 hours. They say time flies by when you're having fun. I didn't even know we've been on for 2 hours. Wait, I'm trying to see what Tim was talking about. Someone's hiding something under her arm. Oh, you guys are bringing up the Peter being a suspect. That would be wild if Peter was involved somehow, some way. Yeah, I think the reasoning, Michelle, was that the police department had flooded and he had took some of the files home, but once it was resolved, why would he bring the files back? So yeah, a lot of suspicion around that mofo. But only the ring finger. What's the conversation about the fingers and hands missing? Let me know in the chat. Let me try to. I'm trying to see what she was hiding. Oh, you're talking about Blair. Yeah. Was she hiding something in the photo? Yeah, there's some. Yeah, there's something with Blair, y'all. I mean, Blair is suspicious, man. There's more to Blair than meets the eye, and not just the bruised eye she got. Yes, yeah, that's so true. That is. I was thinking about that earlier. The Killer of Flower Moons, Killer of a Flower Moons vibes, as far as like, in this episode, and I talked about it in the video, the perspective of the natives of the land when they were at the protesting meeting. They were talking about, we were here first. They're destroying our lands. They're killing. They were saying all the terrible things that the Mayans have done to the people in the town and the environment. And yeah, it definitely reminds, Killer of Flower Moon. They were killing all the Osage Nation people of that community because of their rights to the land and the oil. So definitely some connective tissues for sure. And I mean, it's unfortunate, in both scenarios. This show kind of touches on something that happens in real life, is the injustices on native lands and the turning a blind eye and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of connective tissues for sure. John Berthal, oh man, John Berthal so good. A little side note. What did I see John Berthal in recently? Oh, Origins, Ava DuVernay's new film. Well, I don't want to say anything, but I love John Berthal so much but every time he's in something, his character is either dies or is not in all, half in the movie. I love him so much. He's such a great actor, man. And seems to be one of the good guys out there in the Hollywood landscape. But yeah, John Berthal is great, man. I'm so glad he's back in the Punisher role in the MCU. But yeah, Wind River is a great movie, and John Berthal, he always has a certain character he plays, and it's like in his contract that he must not make it to the end of the movie. But no, he's great. I love it. Telling you, I'm marking every time someone drinks water, takes a bath, and color blue the rest of the way. Keep a tally. Let's see. Asking the wrong way. You're right. I know. Right? I'm pulling a Liz. It's not, it's the why. Right? I gotta ask the right questions. I love it. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. That Blair's, one of her fingers are chopped off. Oh, is that what you were saying about is it in that? I mean, I'm sure I can go back to the episode and look at her fingers. Let me pull this down for a second here, Mr. Tim. Is it in this shot, Tim? Can we see anything? Obviously, she got her finger. Let me move this out the screen. Move this banner out the way. Is there anything? I'm zooming. I don't know if it's not zooming in on you guys, and I can't see her other hand. What's the missing finger angle, Mr. Tim? Is it something? Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back to that scene and see if her fingers are missing. I lost my spot now. Where was I? And we're gonna probably wrap it up here in a bit. I didn't even know it's almost 12 o'clock, man. I need to. By the way, quick plug. I'm in the middle of watching Prime Video's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the new series coming out this week, and I think I'm still under embargo, but yeah, I would suggest you guys keep an eye out for that show. I'm very much enjoying myself. I'll just say that. But I say all that to say when I finish this, I want to watch a couple more episodes before I call it a night. But any final predictions, theories? How many other times did Twist and Shout play in tonight's episode that I missed? Put them in the comments. We'll read them off, and then we'll go for another 10 minutes or so. I'm having a blast, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Whether you were here just now or been here for the whole 2 hours and 10 minutes, I really appreciate y'all, man. I'm really enjoying this show. I'm a big murder mystery guy. Mayor of Easttown was a show I love covering on this channel on HBO. The Outsider, I love me some Only Murders in the Building. I'm a big murder mystery fan, so I always love having these type of discussions, man. So you guys are making this show. The show's already great, but it makes it even better when you have, wonderful people like yourself joining the conversation and dropping in some great tidbits, man. This is fun. I hope you guys are having fun, because I certainly am. But like I said, drop any comments, final comments, theories in the comment section before we call it a night. Polar bear shaped star eye, right? Yeah, I think I have a picture of you. Yep, there it is. Star shaped things are important to this show. Something to keep a eye on. Get it? Because of bear. Missing an eye. All right, it's a little late. The jokes are not that good. Evidence at home. That's weird. Handprint. Remember, they found a handprint. They did, and they weren't able to tie it to any databases. Yeah, I think Captain Conley. Yeah, I think he might know some things or two, or might be paid as well. Yeah, definitely. I mentioned that last week, Tim. The dogs, Kavik says, or Navarro says, your dog's gonna eat you. And he's like, oh, they won't eat me. And we'll see, because we know that the animals, them caribou, jumped off that cliff like it was nothing. So who's to say whatever's going on makes dogs, animals, caribous act crazy. So yeah. All right. Any other comments here before we call it a night? What is my see? He's getting my dog. I got a little polar bear myself. When it gets a little late, he acts a little weird. He needs to go to bed. Polar bear was hallucination, obviously. Here. All right, guys. I think that's it. I think let's see, one last comment here. I believe the titles have a tie in this. Why drop? Yeah. We talked about that earlier. Tyler, definitely some connective tissues for sure. But listen, man. This is fun, man. This is what I look forward to, communicating with you all. Like, I took a little live hiatus for a couple months there, but I'm glad we have a show like this to talk about every Sunday. I'll be back next Sunday talking about episode 4, part 4. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully we get some of these answers we posed tonight. Hopefully we get some reveals. Hopefully we get some good stuff next week. Some more scares, because I'm loving the horror, supernatural elements of the show so far. But yes, I am very much enjoying this show, and I really appreciate you all joining me on this journey, talking about this show. Just a quick little plug for those that didn't get the opportunity to, but might after this stream. full breakdown of this episode, y'all. 30-minute breakdown, talking about some of the stuff we talked about tonight, talked about some other stuff that I didn't mention because I wanted to save it for the video. So definitely check out my full breakdown of tonight's episode, available on the channel now. Things to look forward to later this week. I'll be seeing Argyle on Tuesday, so keep an eye out for a reaction / review. Like I said, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is dropping on Prime Video this week, so I'm going to try to finish that and get some thoughts out about that show because I'm very much enjoying what I'm seeing so far. And then, like I said, we'll be back next Sunday, breaking down episode 4 and having a live. Might have a guest that might be joining us, so keep an eye out for that. But outside of that, man, you guys have been awesome. Hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed the conversation because, man, I certainly did. Y'all got me thinking, twist and shout all throughout this episode. I love it. You guys are awesome, man. Have a good night, everyone. Again, before y'all leave, hit that thumbs up, share, leave your thoughts in the comments watching the replay, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.